So, this episode we have with us David Waxman. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on your podcast today.
Can you take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and your business?
So I am the founder and CEO of a company called TopTipper based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And what we do is really quite simple. We are a cashless tipping platform to enable folks to use their smartphones to tip service workers across a variety of verticals, namely hospitality, car washes, movers, white glove delivery, tour guides, etc. But really, hospitality is a very logical vertical for us, where we've seen a lot of success, and probably what we'll be mostly talking about today.
The first topic you sent over was the modern guest wants to tip. Here's how to make it seamless and why it works. Could you talk a bit about that, the modern guest and their approach to tipping?
Taking a step back, I think that if you look at hospitality across the board, whether it's short-term rentals or just traditional hospitality hotels, everything is sort of moving into technology in all facets of check-in, check-out, guest services. On top of that, Airbnb comes along and really changes the game and makes it a truly technology experience. The other trend that you see is folks just don't carry cash anymore. Like, look at Venmo or look at PayPal or look at like any person under the age of 50. I bet if you pick 10 people on the street, 8 of them wouldn't even have cash in their pockets if you stopped them and asked. So what we saw happening was these two trends: less people carrying cash, people being more comfortable with their technology at the hospitality level. And like, this thing right here is in people's hands or pockets literally 24/7. Even if it's not in their pocket when they're sleeping, it's next to them in the bed. So this is the logical tool with which to transact. And so in our mind, it made sense to ensure that service workers were still getting tipped, because if people don't have cash, they're not going to get tipped. And that's a big portion of wages in the hospitality industry. Now, there's folks who can argue that they should get paid more. That's a topic for a different day. I don't think they would like the outcome of what that stay would cost them if the hotel or short-term rental company paid them a quote-unquote higher wage. It would translate to a higher cost to stay there, and people would hate that too, and they'd complain about that. So, tipping has been the norm in many verticals for hundreds of years, and our goal is to ensure that these folks who are hardworking are still getting tips, even in a cashless age.
As a follow-up, could you give an example of how tipping would work with your product in the context of vacation rentals? Maybe share a couple of roles, how it would happen for one type of professional and then for another.
Absolutely. So, we wanted to create a system that was modular. And so the host or the owner or whoever it is could decide how they wanted tipping to happen. So first, from like the guest experience perspective, there's sort of 2 ways, really 3 ways, in which tipping can happen. One is very simple, and it's these signs that you can download from our site and order from our sign provider that would sit in the property, throughout the properties. This is one for the Carmel Valley Lodge. This is a yoga retreat in Northern California. And it says, if you're pleased with our service, tipping is greatly appreciated. The guest hits the QR code. It takes them to a customized tipping page for Carmel Valley, and they can leave a tip. The second way is within guest communications, whether it's a text message that you use or email, you could have a link to that exact same page that the QR code takes you to leave a tip. So you could set in your property management software a templated text at checkout that goes out and says, hey, we're glad you stayed here. If you were happy with your stay, please consider tipping our hardworking staff. Here's a link. Then the third way is a tight integration into an app. So for instance, in the car wash vertical, which is obviously a different vertical than we're talking about, we're partnered with a firm called Everwash. And Everwash is a monthly subscription service for car washes, so that you pay a one-time fee and can go to the car wash as much as you want. Within that app, there's literally a tip button that redirects the car's owner to leave a tip. So those are sort of the 3 ways in which a guest would experience it. Now, as the property owner or the host, I have a choice of how I want tipping to occur. I could do a pooled tip where basically all the money goes into one pool, and then as the owner, I divvy it out however I see fit. Secondarily, they could say, all right, I have different departments. I've got a concierge, I've got a front desk person, I got a bellhop, I've got a yoga instructor, I have a masseuse, and there can be a drop down on the tipping page where the guests can pick who which department they want to tip. You can even go a step further and have names with photos within each department. And that's all within our platform where they go on the dashboard and they can set that up. And it's really up to the property owner or manager or host or whatever it is of how granular they want to get with the tipping. And we're in the process now of building out a feature. Right now, all the cash goes into one account and then gets distributed to the workers. We're adding a feature where the workers can get paid directly if they're selected by the guest, or the company can decide how they want to distribute the pool, and it would automatically distribute it out. So that's in our product roadmap and being built as we speak. So, we've tried to make it flexible. And then the other piece of this is we've added in the tipping flow the ability to solicit reviews. So our view is if you're tipping, you're happy. Phenomenal opportunity after that tip to ask, hey, would you go onto our TripAdvisor page or our Google business page or our Facebook page or our Yelp page and leave a review? And that's all part of the tipping flow. And we've seen really, really positive experiences where guests are leaving tips. In addition, in our tipping page, there's a notes field where folks can leave a personalized note. And it's actually fun to go through the reporting and see people leave really nice notes, calling out experiences and this and that. And we think that's an important component to making workers feel good about themselves because they're being acknowledged, not just with money, but with praise.
And what about opportunities to tip? At which moment would it make sense to propose this to the guest? Because in the guest journey of vacation rentals, they already receive quite a few messages, discounts, review requests from Airbnb or Booking.com, etc. So wouldn't the tipping request get lost if it's not timed correctly?
I think that, we live in an age right now where inflation is a big topic, right? And we've seen a great deal of inflation over the last 5 years in America and across the world, right? And so wages have gone up, the cost of goods have gone up, and consumers don't like it, understandably so. So you have this balance of, you've heard stories of housekeepers at hotels making $25 an hour when maybe they were making $15 an hour. Now, one could argue $15 an hour to do a really hard job is not enough. Nonetheless, at some point there's a ceiling to what you can pay this worker without having to just continue to pass the cost along to the guest. And so tipping is a very logical way in which to get these folks additional money and also to recognize good work. And everyone likes to be recognized. I don't care if you're a CEO of a company or the person cleaning the toilets. And so tipping is a very good way to do that. And you couple in the ability to add personalized notes. And if you couple in that the system is set up to be able to acknowledge individual workers, it's really going to create, I think, a positive culture within these organizations where folks are seeing the feedback loop and they're seeing my hard work is being recognized, not just monetarily, but with notes or, my name being chosen as the person to get the tip. And I think it's really helpful in this day and age to have happy workers, because happy workers are going to meet happy guests.
And in the food ordering space, tipping is incorporated directly into the user experience. When you pay, it's part of the flow to select a tip. Of course, you can choose 0, but just seeing it in front of you makes a difference.
Yeah, so great question. So the way that would work within our system is let's just say you're a short-term rental host and you use a third-party cleaning company. You effectively would have that third party sign up with us for the tipping, so that the signs would be whatever branding the host wants, but behind the scenes the money's going to the bank account and to the third party company. So any third parties would just set up with us, and it would be seamless to the guest. They wouldn't know that it's being provided by a third party cleaning company and a third party in form of us doing the tipping transaction. So that's the easy, simplest, cleanest way to do it. And this way the host doesn't have to get involved. They don't touch the tips. They don't have to distribute them. It all goes directly to the cleaning company. Or, if it's a masseuse that comes to the house, or it's a hiking guide that the guests sign up for an experience, they all have their own TopTipper accounts where they get the money directly.
That's different from the QR code method you showed. It's an additional step. Not difficult, but still a step, versus having tipping integrated at the moment you place the order.
Absolutely. So, some of our folks have like a sign or two within the properties, right? And that's all they do. Some do signs and then like a checkout email or text saying, hey, like, we were so happy to have you. If you were happy, would you consider tipping? The nuanced part of this, and something we've spent a lot of time looking at, is like, there's a big uproar over the fees, right? And like the cleaning fee, and you hear the horror stories, right? Like that become clickbait where like, there's a $600 cleaning fee or this or that, and they asked me to clean. So we looked at a lot of this, and what we saw was like when they changed the algorithm on listings, and that listings that basically just took the fees and rolled them into the nightly. So you were still paying the fee, but you didn't think you didn't think of it that way because it wasn't broken out. Those seem to get more traction because the algorithm favored those listings. And so in our mind, it's like it's a simple shift. If you're the host and you were charging $400 a night and you had a 3-night minimum and it was a $500 fee, all right, we'll take that $500, divide it by 3, add it to the 400, and then it's not such a big deal to ask for a tip because the customer doesn't feel like they're being feed to death. When there's all these fees, I think it's harder to ask for a tip, and I think you're just not going to see the tip put through, or whatever the word would be. But that's what we think is the ideal scenario. Now, obviously, that takes like a retraining of how a host is posting, and they may be like, no, I don't want to do that, because then if it seems too high per night, they're not going to look at it. But I think that would be the way to approach it. Then they don't feel like they're being nickel and dime with fees. And when you solicit it, it doesn't seem like just another handout, and then they'll leave a bad review if they're pissed about the fees.
So in the short-term rental space, would the end goal be to make tipping part of the booking or checkout process? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think that, it's funny, like I like to go on like X and like look and like search like tipping culture, because you see the same clickbait outrage where they'll show the tipping screen, and most likely I think a lot of the time it's like a Photoshop tipping screen where like the suggested tip is like 50%, 70%, 100%, and then you see 1,000 comments. And so like tipping has sort of become this landmine, and it's also like, if you can't tip someone who's like literally cleaning up the poop that you left in the bathroom in the rental, and you can't leave them $5 or $10 and you're going to be outraged over it, like come on. And so I think it's like, it's just such a simple thing, and I think it goes so far, particularly to someone who's doing this job, that I think if folks just sort of put themselves in the other person's shoes and think about like how meaningful that money is to them, and to the person who just spent $3,000 to stay in some beautiful house for 2 nights, like you can afford to give them $10 or $20 and it's going to make their day. More importantly, you leave a nice note, you're really going to make someone's day, and like that actually should make you feel good too, right? Like it's nice to make other people feel good. It's human nature, right? That it's going to make you feel good as well. And so I think that's a big part of this. And like one of the interesting things that we see, and we track tippers, we have repeat tippers, like more so in the car wash world, right? Because that's something you would do pretty frequently. But like I've got some people who have tipped 50 times at the same car wash. They go twice a month and they tip every time, and like clearly, and they leave a note in the system for the car wash. So like, I think there's certain folks who are just generous and get it, and it makes them feel good, and to them the $5 or $10 they leave, it doesn't change their life in any way, shape, or form, but it will change the person's life they're leaving it for.
Before we wrap up, I just want to thank you, David, for sharing your insights with us today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this episode valuable. Stay connected with us for more conversations like this, and we'll catch you on the next one.